What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome back to the Dapper Snapper Gaming channel, and welcome back to our monthly State of the Meta address. Now, this month we've had some interesting things happen, I would say, and I wanted to go ahead and cover all of that for you. Now, before we get into it, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you are new. We are a new channel, a growing channel, and all of your support is greatly appreciated. And make sure to leave a comment down below letting me know what change you think is most drastic for the metagame, and let me know your thoughts about the Magearna ban that we are going to be discussing, as well as the Cinderace ban, which we're going to be talking about later in the video. Now, before we get into those bans, I wanted to go ahead and talk about the shifts. Now, there were several shifts in this month, and it changes quite a bit, I would say. The first shift that we're going to talk about is the return of Venusaur and Torkoal to OU, which is, we talked about this a while ago. We talked about Torkoal. I talked that Torkoal being an RU was never going to last because Torkoal just is very good this generation. It's been a drought user, which has been great, but then it gets access to body press, which is fantastic. The buff to rapid spin is, pretty good. It's super slow already, so, that's not all that great. You also have the ability to run specs on this with something like Eruption, which hits like a truck. And then, of course, Venusaur is the premier Sun Sweeper in the game right now. Super strong, especially with Weather Ball threatening that fire type coverage instead of having to use something like Hidden Power Fire. Obviously, it is missing out on Hidden Power Ice, but until Landorus is in the game, it's not really that big of a deal. So yeah, it's a huge problem. Venusaur definitely belongs in OU, or at least UUBL. And I figured that it was going to be bouncing back and forth between those two. We also got Blissey and Crawdant back in OU. This isn't too surprising. Blissey is super, super bulky. It gets the option of running leftovers over the Eviolite, which Chansey has to run, so that gives you some passive healing. It also gets the option of running heavy-duty boots, which is kind of an underrated option, I would say. But being able to switch in using those boots, and then it has access to teleport now. Teleport being one of the best moves for these defensive mons, being able to swap themselves out with negative priority. They get to take the hit and then swap into an appropriate counter. So it's a super safe play. It's so good. So teleport on Blissey makes it a super big problem. And then of course Crawdant, we've discussed on the channel quite a bit before. It's a big threat. It hits like a truck with adaptability. Yeah, it's a good boy. Bisharp moving down to UU. Now, I believe this is basically because of the biggest rise of Cinderace. Cinderace is a huge deal, and of course we can see the rise of Sun teams coming back with the Torkoal and the Venusaur. Both of these, I think, lead to the factor of Bisharp dropping, so that's not super surprising. We do get Barraskewda, Pangoro, and Indeedee Male moving down to RUBL. Not super surprising. However, it's the UU to RU shifts. All of these mons here just combined together. This makes the RU tier kind of insane, I would say. The RU tier has so many big threats in it now. You've got Araquanid, which is an amazing web setter. It also hits like a truck with Water Bubble. Arcanine, which we've used on the channel, it's got a lot of utility. Shell Smash, Blastoise, Trick Room on Bronzong, one of the better Trick Roomers in the game. Cloyster, which is a good offensive mon. Caparaja, great all around. Dragalge, great all around. Escavalier hits like a truck. Exploud, I mean, come on, Specs Exploud with Boom Burst, that's insane. Gardevoir, I'm very surprised to see down here. What else? Milotic is a big one. Let's see, Seismitoad, I kind of understand. I can kind of get it. Surfetched, if it was just a little faster, I could see it being higher. And Zoroark is going to be, I think, a pretty decent factor down in this tier as well. So yeah, the RU tier is looking pretty interesting nowadays, and I think it will be pretty cool to see what happens in that tier. Also, Klefki for spikes and Thunderwave and all that stuff, that's kind of crazy, it being down that low, but yeah, this is definitely going to make that tier pretty crazy. So I'm excited to see what all is going to go into the future of this tier. So let's move on to OU, and OU is what we cover most on this channel just because it is the most popular tier out there. And so look at our top two, Magearna and Cinderace. Now, the reason that this video is coming out late is because the Magearna ban was actively, well, I say suspect test, was actively going on when we would have normally posted this video. Normally I post it on the 2nd because we get our results on the 1st, but this time around we had the Magearna suspect test going on, and so I wanted to wait until we got those results back before I reported on anything conclusive. Now, per my prediction, Magearna did get banned, so our number 1 spot is no more, so that is no longer a factor, which is absolutely fantastic. So we now have Cinderace at number 2. However, spoiler alert, this also got banned, and we're going to talk about that as well here in just a second, but for now we're going to skip over it. Mandibuzz is now in the top slot outside of those two, which is pretty interesting. Mandibuzz has always been a really good wall. It's especially with heavy duty boots now, helping it to be able to switch in on rocks and defog pretty safely. It also has U-turn, so it's a great pivot. And then we have Clefable, we've talked about that a million times. Dragapult, same thing. Toxapex, Excadrill, Rillaboom, and Urshifu, and Zeraora. No real surprises here in the top 10. Now, Zeraora, I do think is interesting that it is still in the top 10, just with Tangrowth being what it is. There are plenty of checks to this thing. Another being Amoonguss is another big check to this thing that basically it really can't do a whole lot to them as long as they're physically defensive. So yeah, I don't know. Hippowdon also gives it some trouble, but Grass Knot is a thing as well that they run a lot, so that really checks that. We've got Volcarona with heavy duty boots. As we expected, it is still a very big threat with heavy duty boots no longer taking half damage from stealth rocks, so that makes it a very good mon with a lot of staying power. Another thing you'll notice is that Chansey is still higher than Blissey. Now, Chansey is bulkier than Blissey, but it doesn't have that passive recovery. However, with access to soft boiled, sometimes it doesn't really matter. However, a lot of times it can. So, we may see Blissey rise up a little bit higher, but I would say Chansey is always going to be higher than Blissey. So yeah, they're both really, really good. They're both really, really good walls, obviously only having one weakness and having one immunity. So those are both really, really good, but no resistances. So that makes it a little bit more difficult, but it's still a very good mon. We've still got some pretty interesting stuff up here. Rotom Heat still maintains its spot, which is really cool to see. Como-o is still such a good and versatile thing, and Scizor barely hanging on. I honestly was expecting Scizor to drop this month, to be honest. I really didn't think it was going to make the cutoff, but it barely did. So, good for him. Good for Scizor. Yeah, he's a good boy. So yeah, I'm happy with this. I think we're starting to move in a pretty decent direction now. However, I could see us getting back into the rut that we were just in a couple of months ago, as far as Clefable being back in that number 1 slot and just not moving anymore. So, we're gonna have to see if we can't figure something out, because obviously Cinderace was a really nice check to Clefable carrying the Gunk Shot. You usually could 2-hit KO with Gunk Shot, and so that's one of the biggest checks gone. So yeah, I'm kind of concerned for Clefable becoming super popular again, but we'll just have to wait and see. Now, Magearna's ban was, I think, really obvious. I did not think that this was anything surprising at all. I think Magearna's absolutely busted this generation. The choice spec set is ridiculous because it gets Trick now, so anything that can switch in on it can just get the specs put on it, and they don't like specs. And then with the specs, you basically 2-hit KO or OHKO pretty much everything in the game. It's kind of nuts. It gets Volt Switch for momentum, all that good stuff, as well as the boosting sets, which is more what we showed off on the channel, with things like Iron Defense and Calm Mind, and then now access to Draining Kiss for the healing power, as well as stored power to take care of those boosts. So I mean, it just had everything going for its kit, and it was just such a scary mon to face. Super bulky, could be fast with Shift Gear, could be slow with Trick Room. It's just an insane mon. However, this is more what I wanted to talk about today, is the Cinderace ban. I was going to talk more about the Magearna ban, but the Cinderace ban is now, I think, a little bit more important. And it shows off what I think is somewhat of a flaw in the OU Council's logic here. Now, first of all, I do realize that there is a tournament coming up in the Smogon realm. I don't really do the Smogon tournaments or anything like that, but I understand that there is a tournament coming up and they didn't want Cinderace in the tournament. I get that, but at the same time, I don't understand why they are dictating, you know, what should be quick banned like that, when it really seems like it's based on what will be in that tournament, you know, because really not a whole lot of people, you know, given the scope of Pokemon playing, are really involved in these tournaments. I don't think they're as big of a deal, and this is just me, an outsider perspective, but I really don't think they're as big of a deal to the metagame as it is the everyone else, you know? Because, I mean, I have to imagine what the competitive scene, as far as the tournaments, the tournament part of the competitive scene, has to be less than 5%, right? Of the total player base. I have to think it's less than that, if not even like way less. So I don't see how we can base our decisions on something that fractional when we have all of the rest of the community to vote on something like Cinderace now that Magirna is gone. Now, obviously, Cinderace was a big check to Magearna, and Cinderace is a big threat. Don't get me wrong. Libero Cinderace hits like an absolute truck. It's super fast. It's got a lot of really great coverage that hits really hard. Don't get me wrong, it's a very strong Pokemon. However, I really think that it should have gotten a proper suspect test, just like Magearna did. They are going to test it back in just like they did with Melmetal, but I still do not really approve of how they went about this as far as just quick banning it outright. So that's just something I have a problem with. I'm not really much on the quick bans of the small council. I get that they are there to help make the decisions, anything that needs to be drastically done, but I really don't think that this was drastic enough of a decision to really have to make right now. And I think it may end up hurting the metagame a little bit. I'm not going to say it's crucial to the metagame or it's going to break anything, but it is unfortunate to have hyped up the Magearna suspect test when we all knew the result. We all knew what was going to happen, but then you just quick ban Cinderace anyway. So it's like, what was even the point of doing the suspect test on Magearna? There wasn't really a point to it. We all knew the result was going to be banned. That was just kind of a formality. And then we just take Cinderace out anyway with no suspect test. It just kind of felt like it defeated the purpose. And so it felt like it was kind of a waste of time to even do the Magearna suspect test if you're just going to then quick ban Cinderace anyway, if that makes any sense. But so yeah, that's just my thoughts on that. I just don't think that it was fair for them to do that, but that's just me. But in the comments below, let me know what you thought about that, what you think about those bans, if you think that they are warranted, if you think that's totally what should happen, or if you think that it's weird that they would do that, you think it's wrong that they would do that. And, you know, let me know what you think about the current metagame going forward, especially the RU tier. I think the RU tier is about to get real interesting. So yeah, let me go down in the comments below and make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you are new. So thank you guys so much for watching this state of the meta. And of course, this will be back again next month. And I will see you guys very soon as far as streaming goes. I'll see you guys tomorrow night for a stream. So anyway, guys, be safe out there. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.